The BYU quarterback battle in spring camp is obviously going to draw a lot of attention and extra eyeballs when it comes to who will end up as BYU's QB1. Well, that's happening both locally and nationally. I'll explain on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where, of course, the motto is your team every day. And as such, we are your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little bit further? Everyone, the new adventure could be right around the next corner for you. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. All right, let's dive right in on today's show and talk BYU quarterbacks. Oh, yes, we are going right back to the well that seems to spring eternal when it comes to BYU football, especially this spring, with a two-man race atop the BYU QB depth chart, Gerry Bohanon versus Jake Retzlaff. The newcomer who has a bona fide resume against the incumbent who started the last 4 games of last season for BYU and has been in the program for almost 2 years now. Who is ultimately going to win that QB battle? Well, it's anybody's guess at this point. I'll tell you this much, just based on my conversations with people seemingly daily. I get one report that says, hey, Jake Retzlaff looks the part. The next person seems to tell me, well, Gerry Bohanon looks the part. And I'm not 100% certain if it's ever going to really balance out where it's going to be completely one-sided. The whole consensus is that it's this guy. That's probably not going to happen at least until August at the very earliest when BYU begins training camp. But there's an interesting ranking put out there, and it's a guy that I respect immensely. Many of you know who Berry Tramel is. Used to work as a sports columnist for the Oklahoman, one of the big newspapers out there in the state of Oklahoma. Now works for a website, a digital platform called selloutcrowd.com, and doing really, really cool things in a new space. He's covering all of the sports, but he's got a very keen eye and a long history having covered the Big 12. This is a guy who's got 40 plus years of experience in newspaper writing and just covering the Big 12. So this is a guy who has got, talking about Gerry Bohanon, has a bona fide resume when it comes to weighing in on matters of the conference. And he talked in a recent newsletter he put out yesterday about BYU's, not BYU's, but the Big 12's QB situation for all of the 16 teams in the new look Big 12 beginning this fall. And he did a ranking of all of those. Now, that's where it brings us to the BYU part of this conversation. He ranks BYU dead last, 16 out of 16 with regards to their QB situation. And here's what Berry had to say about BYU's quarterback situation. And he, by the way, he is projecting Gerry Bohanon to be BYU's starter, to be clear about this. He says veteran Jake Retzlaff may win the job. He quarterbacked the Cougars to upset threats against both OU and OSU, speaking of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, in the final 2 games of the 2023 season. Bohanon is a 7th-year player who quarterbacked Baylor in the 2019 Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma. He transferred to South Florida in 2022 and was mostly ineffective and missed all of last season with the knee injury. Well, he's wrong about the knee injury. It was a shoulder injury, but regardless, the point remains that he has BYU dead last in these QB rankings. He also mentions the point in this story, and you can go to selloutcrowd.com and subscribe. I'd encourage you to do so. It's all free, by the way. There's no paywall or anything like this. He points out that he believes that 15 of the 16 quarterback jobs are all but settled for the schools in the Big 12 conference outside of BYU. So why would Gerry place BYU dead last in this ranking? I honestly think it's because there is a QB battle ongoing, and he's not 100% certain who BYU ultimately will go with. And secondly, I think that he's also concerned that BYU doesn't have the quarterback play that is going to be necessary to help them elevate themselves in the Big 12 conference. Once again, I'll reiterate that I've been out to 3 of BYU's spring practices of the 5 they've had to this point. They will have their 6th and begin week 3 in earnest today at the Student Athlete Building, speaking of Tuesday. And I'm looking forward to being back out there and watching a little bit more practice and getting a better feel for things. But the bigger point I think to be had here is that you look at the situation that BYU finds themselves in, and I don't think it's a perfect situation if you pick Jake Retzlaff or if you pick Gerry Bohanon, because I think both have their deficiencies. There's a reason why they're not guys that are being rated higher in this. They rank Brendan Sorsby, for example, at Cincinnati. The transfer from Cincinnati was so-so as the Hoosier starter last year with a 129.9 passer efficiency rating. He threw 15 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. So Berry is not very high on the number 15 quarterback, but the bigger thing is that he is pointing out that you look at the situation that BYU finds itself in, and it's not ideal. He's got Jaden Rashada, a guy who started just a few games, his third game at ASU, as the number 14 quarterback on this chart. So it's not ideal to have people out there. Like I said, Berry has been covering the Big 12 for years. He is a huge, he was, and he still is a huge proponent of Brigham Young, as he likes to call him, being a member of the Big 12 Conference. He's been crowing about it and hoping it was going to happen for literally years. And when it finally did happen, he's been a regular guest on my radio show in the KSL Sports Zone as well. And he's talked about the fact that BYU is a welcome addition to the conference, but I think he has got a very, very keen eye on this. And I think he understands that the situation BYU finds itself in with regards to that quarterback battle, it's not necessarily an ideal situation for the Cougars. Are they going to ultimately come out of spring camp, speaking of BYU, and hit the panic button and try and hit the transfer portal and find somebody to bring in? I don't think so. I honestly think BYU is dead set on getting the best out of one of these two quarterbacks, whether it's Bohanon or Retzlaff. My money right now still remains it's going to be Jake Retzlaff in the end, with Gerry Bohanon being that quote-unquote insurance policy should Retzlaff be rendered ineffective or get injured. But the other thing about this is the sample size we have from Jake Retzlaff leaves a lot to be desired. I think a lot of us, and I'm including myself in this conversation, are expecting Jake Retzlaff with an extra year plus of working in this system, getting into the strength and training program, getting more familiar with his guys, speaking of his wide receivers, and maybe the ultimate key to all this, working extensively with John Beck down there at 3D QB, which is a stone's throw away from where he grew up in the Corona area of California. I think that is going to hopefully yield a better and more improved version of Jake Retzlaff. When Jake Retzlaff was at his best last year for BYU, he was a very capable quarterback. The problem was that was in fits and spurts, and you didn't necessarily see it all the time. BYU needs him to be peak Jake Retzlaff all the time this season if they want to up the ante and get back to 6+ wins in the Big 12 Conference. So I'm looking forward to this. And I think Berry, him ranking BYU quarterbacks dead last in the conference, I don't think it's off base at all. But at the same time, if you're Jake Retzlaff and or Gerry Bohanon, who he is projecting to be BYU starting quarterback, you take that, you put it on your shelf, or you put it as a chip on your shoulder to go out and prove the world wrong and say, no, I'm better than half of these dudes. You use that to motivate yourself every single day. When you hit the practice field, hit the weight room, the books, whatever it is, use it to motivate yourself and better yourself. And the hope is that as a result of this, BYU will have improved quarterback play in 2024 and thereby, fingers crossed, a better season overall. A guy that knows a little bit, a thing or two about BYU's quarterbacks is a guy by the name of Chase Roberts. He might be the top option wide receiver, along with a number of other guys in that wide receiving core that is quite deep. And whoever ends up as BYU starting quarterback should have a complement of guys to get the ball out to on the perimeter. Well, I had a chance to catch up with Chase Roberts recently during BYU spring camp. He had a lot to say about his fellow wide receivers, but more importantly, comments on both Jake Retzlaff and Gerry Bohanon. And we'll let you hear from him next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. Are you kind of driver that likes to push things just a little bit further, my friends? Ever wonder what the next adventure could be right around the corner for you? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. They have the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives, but also getting out on those great escapes as well. Has class exclusive Google built in as your always updating assistant to be on call for almost anything you need to handle while you're in the vehicle. Or if you are not necessarily looking for something a little bit bigger, go and check out the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Has room room up to 8, an expensive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability if you want to get off literally the broken road. The 2024 Nissan Armada is also available. Will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. You can tow bigger and explore further, with the 2024 Armada as well. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure courtesy of our friends at Nissan. Check them out today at shopnissanusa.com. Once again, that's nissanusa.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Utah Community Credit Union. Now, good news is UCCU has just elevated their checking accounts with more benefits, more savings, and more online protections than ever before. And I mean a lot more, my friends. Paired with the most advanced and comprehensive mobile banking tools, Elevated Checking is a must-have financial product packed with lifestyle security and financial benefits, including free ATMs nationwide, an exclusive discount on any UCCU auto, RV, or personal loan, and an extra 10% cash back on every purchase made with your UCCU Visa Cashback credit card. And the best part is also they have UCCU's Credit Score Toolbox, a state-of-the-art set of tools designed to help you improve your credit score and enhance your financial well-being. It's all part of Elevated Checking from UCCU. And the best part is it's free when you do any one of the following. Use your debit or credit card 15 times or more a month. I have a monthly direct deposit of $500 or more, or if you have an average daily balance of $1,500 or more in your account. Otherwise, UCCU's Elevated Checking is just $6 a month to take care of all of those features, as well as many, many more, my friends. So visit uccu.com to open an Elevated Checking account online today, or stop by any branch in person to open that account right away, my friends. It's all courtesy of UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I want to encourage you, if you have not done so already, make sure you check out the first ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's now available on YouTube and also now available on Amazon Fire TV and the Free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is the name of the channel. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, and also has our national shows covering every league as well. Find Locked On Sports Today available wherever you check out podcasts on Amazon Fire TV and the Free Fire TV channels app, or available now on YouTube. All right. I had a chance to catch up with Chase Roberts recently, and his guy that I am expecting to have maybe his finest season in a BYU uniform. The good news is surrounding him at wide receiver, BYU has got a lot of talent, a lot of depth, and honestly, whoever wins that quarterback battle for BYU, there's not going to be a shortage of options on the perimeter to get the ball out to. And that's a big thing for quarterbacks is you want to have playmakers around you. So it makes your job simple. Get the ball to the playmakers, let them make the play. You look like the hero. That's simply put, that's the best way to go about it, in my opinion, when it comes to playing quarterback for the BYU football program. Well, Chase Roberts had a lot to say about what he's worked on as a wide receiver, some of his fellow receivers in that room, and like I said, also some comments on both what Jake Retzlaff and Gerry Bohanon bring to BYU as the two-man race for the quarterback battle continues. What do you evaluate so far from your performance, you feel like, in spring?
I've learned a lot. I feel like we've added a lot of different things in the offense, blocking, different, condensed schemes, and I've been able to learn a lot about, moving around, being in the slot a little more, and it's been fun to see the other guys compete and perform, and just kind of how we mix together this year with some new guys and also a lot of the veterans. So it's been a great learning experience so far. And keep getting better every day and getting that chemistry with the quarterbacks.
You mentioned playing in the slot. Is that a design thing? Is that something you've requested? Like, why move you inside?
I think we're just trying to mix it up.
Okay.
And get different looks for the defenses, mix them up a little bit. And so when we get out on the field, that everyone can run every position, and that we can get a little more mismatches. We have Keanu at tight end now, so we have a lot of mismatches that we can take advantage of now.
Versatility, the name of the game, right?
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. I wanted to ask you about Keanu. I know he's a tight end now, but you've played with him for quite a while.
Yeah.
What do you make of him as a tight end?
He's awesome. I think he moves the exact same, but he's 30 pounds heavier. Okay. So it's fun to see him go out and compete and make plays, and he's going to be a dog this year.
Obviously, you have worked on your game for quite a while now. This is your fourth year, if I'm not mistaken, in the program. Is it third or fourth year?
Fourth year in the program, yeah.
What did you work on the most in the offseason?
The biggest thing, I worked a lot with Austin Collie, and I think it was getting out of breaks, getting low, putting my foot in the ground, and not being afraid to really get low and change my pad level. So that's what I was working on the offseason, and what we're going to work on after spring ball as well.
Well, Austin, obviously one of the all-time legends here.
Yeah,
How'd you
he's
get hooked
awesome.
up with him?
He's been a good buddy. I mean, all through my career here,
Okay,
and
got it.
giving me tips, and we watch film together, and so he's been a great mentor for me. So shout out Austin Colley.
Are you working with him individually, or is it something like he's come down and worked with the other guys as well?
I think we've been the tightest for sure,
Okay.
but he also helps a lot with some other guys who are willing to come. And
Okay.
but I think me and Austin are definitely the tightest. Yeah.
Because here's the question: is he the next like John Beck for BYU wide receiver type deal?
I think so. I think he is right now. Yeah, for sure.
You guys don't have to drive 12 hours to see him at least. I
Yeah,
suppose.
exactly. Yeah.
Now, with regards to just playing wide receiver in this offense, do you feel like you mentioned you've added things to the offense? Is it just in an effort to, as you mentioned, be maybe more dangerous, or is it just something you just want to shake it up a little bit? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, we always want to be versatile,
Yeah.
in every position that we can be. I've gained a little bit of weight as well.
Okay.
So I think I could be a bigger body on the outside as well, going up and getting balls, and that's what I've been needing to work on as well this spring ball, and then also in the slot being able to move and be quick, going up against linebackers in the slot and stuff like that. So it's kind of being that, we can throw it deep to him on the outside, but we can also have him work a linebacker in the middle.
Okay.
So.
Well, here's two inevitable questions for you. I want to ask you where you've seen Jake Retzlaff improve the most as a quarterback from last year to this year so far.
I think the biggest thing with Jake is his mentality, and I think he's stepped up to the plate, and he wants to be the guy. He really does, and he's competing, he's fighting, and he's got that vocal leadership now, and he's making a lot of plays this spring ball. So hopefully he carries it through, and then we'll keep working in the off season and going into fall camp.
And how is Gerry Bohanon fitted in your mind?
Same exact thing. He's competing. He wants to be the guy. So it's fun to see them battle. And he's a experienced veteran quarterback that knows the system really well. So they're right there neck and neck, and it's going to be fun to see who comes out on top.
Has it been? I know he had obviously the understanding of the base concepts of this offense, having played at Baylor.
Yeah.
Have you been impressed with how quickly he's picked up? I guess like kind of the finer nuances of this offense.
Oh yeah, he's fit right in. It felt like he's been in the offense for years now. So he quickly picked it up, and it doesn't feel like he's catching up or doing anything, behind. He's not behind at all.
I wanted to ask you about the guys playing alongside you guys like Kody and Keelan and Darius and even Parker. Like, how do you feel like the group overall looks?
Darius has been phenomenal this spring ball. He's stepped it up a lot. It's been fun to see him take over. Keelan's been awesome. Kody, Parker, like all those dudes, even the young dudes that are coming up have been performing and making a lot of plays. So we got a lot of depth this year, and it's going to be fun.
We only get to watch like 20 minutes of practice, but Jojo Phillips seems like every time we come out here, he's made a highlight reel type.
Yeah,
play.
Jojo, yeah.
Was he making those plays last year? What's led to that?
He's a lot stronger this year,
Okay.
and more confident. I think the biggest thing is he's gained a lot of strength, and he's able to go up and make plays, and he scored a touchdown last year in the Iowa State game. That gave him a lot of confidence, I think, going into this next year, and I think he's going to be a big contributor.
What is your confidence level that you guys will be able to carry, take what you learned from last year and parlay it into more success in year 2 in the Big 12?
Yeah, I think there's nothing that we haven't seen now. We've been at the biggest stages, competed against the best of the best, and I think going to this year, we know in the moments it might have seemed like we got dominated in some games, but in reality, we were right there neck and neck. It's just a little things, little tweaks that we need to do to win those games and to be, to be up there and the best team in the Big 12. So I think we're right there.
Jace Roberts, there you have it. Big thank you to him for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. But I think it was very important to hear him talk about the fact that nothing is going to be new for BYU this year in the 2024 season as they enter the second year in the Big 12 Conference. Yes, there were things they were prepared for going into 2023, but until you really experience it and see it firsthand, there's not necessarily anything you can do to prepare for certain scenarios. And I think some of the things that BYU faced last fall, but as he points out, they have learned from those mistakes. They are motivated to go out there and get it right. And it sounds like he's high on both quarterbacks, both Gerry Bohanon and Jake Retzlaff, whoever ends up winning that quarterback battle. But I'll just reiterate, it's nice to have guys like a Chase Roberts, a Darius Lassiter, Keelan Marion, just on down the list. Even the young bucks like Jojo Phillips. The talent base for BYU at the wide receiver position should be deep. It should be varied. And as Chase pointed out, they're all learning different positions to be even more versatile and able to attack defenses better. And that should yield, I think, better overall play for BYU's offense, and hopefully will yield just an improved offensive product on the field as well. We'll see. Interesting to hear Chase, but you can tell he's very confident in he and his teammates' ability to hopefully go out and quote unquote shock the world year 2 here in the Big 12 Conference. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we'll finish out today's edition of the podcast looking at BYU and the Big 12 men's basketball tournament later this week. Who does BYU really want to play on Wednesdays? They'll face the winner of both UCF and Oklahoma State. We'll talk about that as we continue on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. I apologize for that. The best part is FanDuel can help you guys say goodbye to the busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tournament. The best part is whether you're betting on a big upset or just simply want to go with the chalk and the 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you get $200. $200. You heard that right. In bonus bets, if your first $5 bet wins, think about that. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. Take that 16-1 upset. No matter what you're interested in, you can even pick who's going to win it all this March. So take advantage of it now. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets or anything else you're interested in. You want to do futures on MLB with the MLB season not too far off, you can do that. If you're more into the NBA or if you want to, frankly, you want to bet on the UFL, the new conglomeration of the XFL and the USFL, it's all available to you courtesy of our friends at FanDuel. So once again, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's as simple as it can be. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Please consider subscribing to our Locked On Cougars Insider group. It's a great way to interact with the show via text message. I'm sending updates daily out to our listeners, and the way you get access to that is to sign up. It's in the show notes, whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. 14-day free trial, $5 a month afterwards. And just, like I said, it's a great way to interact with the show, but also helps support the show financially as well. So please consider subscribing to that. And also, if you have not done so already, subscribe to the show, whether you're watching it once again on YouTube or wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any one of the myriad of other podcast providers out there. Please also consider leaving us a rating and review, a comment or two on YouTube. All of that goes a long way to helping us continue to build our audience. We're not that far off on the YouTube side of things of having 5,000 subscribers. It's a benchmark I've been chasing for a little while now. We're under 100 subscribers. I think like 75 subscribers to go. So looking forward to breaking that threshold in the near future and appreciate any and all support y'all can offer in that respect. All right. As we finish up today's show, BYU men's basketball is in Kansas City. They're going to be going through their lone, full practice ahead of the Big 12 men's basketball tournament. And the biggest thing for BYU is if they have plans to make a run here in Kansas City, or out in Kansas City, it begins with the quarterfinal, a second round matchup, as they will take on the winner of UCF and Oklahoma State. And I apologize yesterday, by the way, a couple of you pointed out, I did mention West Virginia and I just misspoke. I was looking quickly at the bracket and just spoke too quickly. My mind got ahead of me. So I apologize for that, but it is the Oklahoma State Cowboys against the UCF Knights in a first round matchup today. The winner gets a date with BYU tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time, at 11:30 for those of you who may be making the trip out to Kansas City. And I'm looking at this and I'm trying to say, okay, BYU has split their games against Oklahoma State. Obviously, they just faced them most recently with that game last Saturday. So there's that familiarity factor between the Cowboys and the Cougars. And then also you look at the conversely, BYU was 2-0 versus fellow newcomer UCF this season. Now they had a very tough battle down in Florida, and UCF did give BYU a run in Provo, but the Cougars won the game in Provo a lot more comfortably than they did in Orlando. But I look at this and I'm kind of going back and forth. Okay, do you want the team you just barely saw that's going to have more familiarity with you? Maybe. Or do you want a UCF team that has been pretty good defensively, but is offensively challenged? And the more I've kind of pontificated and thought about it, I am of the belief that BYU wants to see UCF for a simple reason that I think that Oklahoma State has better athletes on paper than UCF does, and the offensive woes that UCF has flashed at points this season. And remember, Houston held them to like 4 or 5 field goals in a span of, I don't know what it was. It was a crazy number. They can find themselves in an absolute slog offensively. And I think that BYU, after what they did last Saturday against Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, I think, would be more equipped to go toe-to-toe with BYU and make it a much more interesting matchup. Now, UCF, with their big men, in particular Diallo out there in the middle, they can make life miserable for you because they're just so long and athletic. But I think the confidence factor for BYU, having beaten UCF in back-to-back matchups this season, and the fact that they haven't played them as recently, I think that if I'm speaking from my perspective, and if I were to pick the opponent for BYU, I want the UCF Knights. But the other thing about this is, BYU has to be feeling good about their chances here. Now, you win that first round game or the second round game in BYU's case, and then you advance to face Texas Tech. Well, the nice part about it is BYU is going to have plenty of revenge on their mind, because remember, that was a team BYU had on the ropes early on in the second half. They built a 16-point halftime lead. It got to 17 points, and then Texas Tech came storming back in Lubbock to get the win over BYU. You can guarantee BYU has not forgotten what happened against the Red Raiders, and they would love nothing more than to have payback and have the ability to go out there and show what they're capable of. You heard Spencer Johnson last week. If you listen to his media availability leading up to the Oklahoma State game, we definitely have payback on our mind when it came to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. They struggled mightily in Stillwater, and they wanted to prove they were a better team than Oklahoma State. And yes, the first half was a little bit interesting against the Cowboys, but then BYU just absolutely blitzed the Cowboys in the second half and ran away with a comfortable victory. I think this BYU team just kind of reading and kind of feeling, how am I trying to say this? Reading between the lines and just kind of getting a feel for this team. I think they are brimming with confidence. I think they have got nothing more than they've had all season long in terms of their belief in themselves to go out there and be able to take it to anybody on the court. And I think that even comes with the debacle that was the end of that game against Iowa State. They know that they had the Cyclones right where they want them. They know they can go to Lawrence, Kansas, and beat the likes of Kansas in the vaunted Fog Allen Fieldhouse. This is a BYU team that is feeling good about itself as it heads into the most important stretch of the season. This is when the legends are made. This is when you stamp you are one of the all-time teams. I said yesterday, I believe this is one of the top 5 seasons in BYU basketball history. Well, if you really want to be remembered indelibly for years to come, you've got to make noise in the postseason. Does that mean you have to win the Big 12 conference title? No, I don't believe you have to do that. And I think you'd be hard pressed to do that. I frankly think BYU, if they do make a run, it's probably to the semifinals and then they're out after that. And I don't mind that at all, because I think it's a pretty good run. And then you obviously get ready for what is ultimately the biggest part of the season. That's the NCAA men's basketball tournament. I am very eager. If I could right now, I would fast forward to Selection Sunday, and I'm fingers crossed. I want nothing more than to see BYU playing inside the Delta Center with upon thousands of BYU fans crowded in there, giving BYU a home court advantage. If the projections, like I saw Joe Lunardi had Auburn in the bracket with BYU, can you imagine Bruce Pearl's belly aching if BYU is the 5 seed and they're the 4 seed, speaking of the Auburn Tigers, and they essentially are playing an away game in Salt Lake City against the home-standing BYU Cougars? I'm here for all of it. I would absolutely love nothing more than to see that play out, but BYU's got to take care of business, and I think it starts and with that game tomorrow, and I've got fingers crossed it's against the UCF Knights, but even if it is the Oklahoma State Cowboys, BYU, I don't think it can be riding any higher than they are right now, and I'm looking forward to that. And also, I just wanted to pass along a little aside to this. I want to say happy Ramadan. I don't remember how you say it correctly. I think it's happy Ramadan to the 3 BYU players who are celebrating, or I guess not celebrating, but observing Ramadan. It's the Islamic holy month. Most Muslims fast daily, going without food or water from sunrise to sunset. Ali Khalifa is not going to eat or drink at all during daylight hours, and he is obviously going to be working with BYU strength and conditioning and their staff to make sure that he is fully hydrated. That 11:30 tip is going to be in 11:30 Central Time, 10:30 Mountain Time tip on Wednesday. It'll be interesting to see how he handles that. But Fousseyni Traore and Atiki Atiki have both said they are planning on doing different things to observe Ramadan. But I think it's really cool that BYU has got guys like this in the university who are living their life and being the best they can be as adherents to the Muslim faith. I saw somebody on social media, and I wish I could give them credit off the top of my head, but they said, how incredible is it that BYU can have a starting quarterback who is Jewish and a practicing Jew, and then 3 guys who are contributors in their lineup for the BYU men's basketball program who are of the Muslim faith. It's a really cool thing for a university that is sponsored and affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a Christian evangelical type religion. It's an incredible thing that we're seeing kind of unfold before all of us. So I just want to say thank you to Ali Khalifa, Fousseyni Traore, and Atiki Al-Atiki for doing what you do. It can be hard to be a minority in a very dominant religious environment like BYU is, but it's very cool to see this. And I just want to say, enjoy the tournament, and I'm fingers crossed that everything goes well. And the best part about this, I think it would be fun to see BYU's players like Ali Khalifa, Fous Traore, and Atiki Al-Atiki, while they're observing Ramadan, also show that you can play high-level basketball while also doing that and being an inspiration for the next generation of people associated with them. So we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out, but it's a big week ahead, and a few weeks, it looks like, ahead for the BYU men's basketball program. And I, for one, am very much looking forward to it. Now, one fun note before we go on today's show is I want to say something I forgot yesterday is congratulations to the BYU women's distance medley relay team. They won the indoor national title on day 1 of the NCAA Division I indoor track and field championships Friday night in Boston. Really cool to see this. I think it's for the second time in 3 years that they have won that national title. Sadie Sargent, who is married to BYU defensive tackle Bruce Mitchell, opened the race running at the 1,200 meter leg in a very good time. Then Sammy Oblad ran the 400 meter leg. Carly Hansen followed that up with the 800 meters, and then Riley Chamberlain bringing it home, anchoring the squad with a 1,600 meter run. So congratulations to the 4 athletes on winning that national title. It's a really cool thing to see, and BYU continues to have a very strong showing on the national stage when it comes to track and field. So there you go. That's what I got for you guys on this Tuesday edition of the podcast. I'm going to get this out a little bit earlier than Tuesday. I'm actually going to publish it Monday evening, so bear with me. I'm trying to kind of stratify these podcasts a little bit, because with a morning tip in a basketball game kind of changes how I'm publishing a podcast. So nonetheless, I appreciate any and all of your guys' support of the podcast. I truly can't thank you guys enough for continuing to rate, review, subscribe to the show, share it with your family and friends, and of course, making it your first listen of the day, and obviously for being everydayers with us here on the podcast as well. As we like to say, it is your team every day, and we'll be back tomorrow with you guys right here on Locked On Cougars.